Hi, my name is Melissa James and I'm the CEO and founder of Inclusive Tourism and the accessible tourism website cangoeverywhere.com.au. So what is accessible tourism, or inclusive tourism as it's now being referred to in some parts? Well, simply put, it's about providing tourism products and services that everyone can access. Older people, people with disabilities, families travelling with prams, and arguably the largest upcoming sector, baby boomers, and I'll talk more about them shortly. It's estimated that accessible tourism will make up 25% of all tourism worldwide by 2020. It has a huge potential for growth, and research shows its members are more easily converted into regular customers who, on average, spend more per trip than the usual tourist. But yet this market has been largely ignored by the tourism industry. Why? Well, I think it's simply a matter of lack of awareness and education. Often when I talk to operators, I find their perception of accessible tourism is all about wheelchairs, and they write that off as being too difficult. In the case of some accommodation providers, they feel they are obliged to provide wheelchair accessible rooms just to meet legislative requirements, and in their experience, these rooms have a very low occupancy rate. In many of these cases, it turned out the businesses didn't even advertise these rooms, not on their own websites, anywhere. If you don't know it's there, how can you be expected to book it? However, the truth is only 8% of travellers in this market are wheelchair users. So that leaves the other 92% who may not need wheelchair access, but would benefit from some other level of accessibility. So for example, providing menus in a larger font will benefit people with vision impairment. Let's look a bit closer at the market. 14% of Australians are over 65 years old, and 1 in 5 Australians has a disability. The more you age, the more likely you are to develop one or more disabilities. Baby boomers are retiring, and 40% of them will have some form of disability, whether they identify with it or not. Now, baby boomers are the group of people born between 1946 and 1964, and it's estimated that they control about 60% of the disposable income. They're active, they're cashed up, and they are not accustomed to being told, no, you can't do that. The Australian National Visitor Survey was conducted in 2017, and it looked at the market spend of people with disabilities. And what they found is that they took 3.8 million overnight trips, which accounts for about 17% of the market. The average spend was $100 on a day trip and $615 on an overnight trip. They travel in larger groups, 2.8 for overnight, 3.4 for day trips. In the first quarter of 2017, the contribution to the market from people with disabilities was $3.3 billion. From older people, it was $2.9 billion, and families with prams, it was $2.7 billion. Now, this represents a combined spend of $8.9 billion, and that was in the first quarter of 2017 alone, from accessible tourism or inclusive tourism. Now that's bigger than the China market, and look how much money we throw at that. Plus these are just domestic figures. It's estimated that about 7% of inbound visitors require some level of accessibility. So add that into the mix and we've just boosted it even further. I think these stats clearly show that indeed this is a very valuable market, and tourism businesses that embrace it will benefit from the positive effect it will have not only on their bottom line, but also from the perspective of a good corporate citizen. Catering to this market, though, needs to be a collaborative effort. There's no point in having the most accessible hotel in the world if people can't get to it, or there's nothing else in the vicinity that's accessible. So we need to look at it in more of a holistic way and consider the complete package. What's the infrastructure like? What are the transport options? Are there accessible public amenities such as toilets? What about parking, etc.? So this means it's also important to engage with local councils and tourism bodies. They need to be developing inclusive tourism strategies and building them into their forward planning. And when this happens, it's not just the tourists that will benefit, but the community at large.